హలో ఫ్రెండ్స్, ఈరోజు న్యూ సోషలిస్ట్ ఇనిషియేటివ్ అనే ఒక వామపక్ష రాజకీయ వేదిక దేశవ్యాప్తంగా ప్రస్తుతం రాజకీయంగా ఎదురవుతున్నటువంటి సంక్షోభ పరిస్థితులని, దాని లోతుపాతులని చర్చిస్తూ వామపక్ష ప్రగతిశీల శిబిరం ముందు ఉన్నటువంటి సవాళ్ళు ఏమిటి, దాన్ని ఏ విధంగా మనం స్పందించవలసి ఉంటుంది, మనకున్న అవకాశాలు ఏమిటి అనే దాని మీద ఒక విస్తృతమైన చర్చ చేసే క్రమంలో భాగంగా దేశవ్యాప్తంగా ఆన్లైన్లో కానీ ఆఫ్లైన్లో ఫిజికల్గా కానీ అనేక చోట్ల ఈ విషయం మీద చర్చలు చేస్తూ ఉంది. అందులో భాగంగా ఈరోజు మనం ఇక్కడ చిన్న మిత్రులతో సమావేశం ఏర్పాటు చేసుకున్నాం. ఈరోజు చర్చను ప్రారంభించేందుకు మనకు న్యూ సోషలిస్ట్ ఇనిషియేటివ్ లీడింగ్ మెంబర్ అయినటువంటి రవి సిన్హా గారు మన మధ్యలో ఉన్నారు. ఈరోజు ప్రజాస్వామ్య వ్యవస్థకు ఎదురవుతున్నటువంటి సమస్యలు, సవాళ్ళు ఏమిటి, మనం ఎదుర్కొంటున్న సవాళ్ళు ఏమిటి, మన ముందున్న అవకాశాలు ఏమిటి, లేకుంటే మనం మార్చుకోవాల్సిన ఆలోచనలు ఏమైనా ఉన్నాయా అనే వాటి గురించి ఒక చర్చను ప్రారంభించేందుకు ఈరోజు మన మధ్యలో రవి సిన్హా ఉన్నారు. ఒక 40 సంవత్సరాలుగా ఆయన రాజకీయ కార్యకర్తగా పనిచేస్తున్నారు. రవి సిన్హా శిక్షణ రీత్యా భౌతిక శాస్త్రంలో శిక్షణ పొందారు ఆయన. అయితే ముందు నుంచి కూడా విద్యార్థి దశ నుంచి కూడా ఆయన కమ్యూనిస్ట్ రాజకీయ ఉద్యమంలో భాగస్వామిగా ఉన్నారు విద్యార్థి దశ నుంచే. సో ఈరోజు ఈ చర్చను ప్రారంభించవలసిందిగా నేను రవి సిన్హా గారిని అడుగుతున్నాను. నౌ ఐ రిక్వెస్ట్ రవి టు ఇంట్రడ్యూస్ దిస్ టాపిక్ and make his initial presentation, and based on that we can continue our discussion. The theme being the political crisis in India and the challenges before democracy and the opportunities are the kind of thinking that we need to make today, especially left and liberal forces. So please, Ravi.
Thank you, Bhargav. Can I just keep this here? Yeah. I would like to share with you some of the discussions and thoughts that we often discuss inside NSI, the New Socialist Initiative. And basically I will like to put before you some points for discussion in 3 parts. One, the first is about the nature of the political crisis itself, and there I will not try to be descriptive. I think all of us know, maybe you know better than I do, the details of the nature of the political crisis current. By political crisis, current political crisis, basically I mean the rise of Hindutva politics, its coming to power, and its domination, its hegemony in the current political scene. So I will try not to spend time on describing the elements of that. I will have some analytical kind of a conceptual kind of things to say on that. The second part will that flows from there is what appears to be possible, and I am talking about the entire political scene, how to confront this political situation, how to meet with this crisis, what could be possible solutions. And there I am still not talking about challenges before this or that kind of political forces. I'm just stating the problem of fascism, what could be the solution, whoever brings the solution, what could be, steps towards solution. And then in that light, I will talk in the end towards challenges before the left. By left, I mean the entire left spectrum, starting from CPI all the way to radical left and so on. So roughly speaking, these three portions will be there. I will little bit go here and there, but mostly I will try to keep to this framework. Now, about the political crisis, I would like to start the discussion with the question of democracy. And the way I think we should think about democracy is, of course, we are talking about bourgeois democracy, electoral democracy, whatever you call it, the democracy that constitutes the government and state in today's India. There I would like to make a difference, between two aspects of democracy. The first aspect, what I will call, is institutional framework of democracy. By institutional framework, examples could be, we have a written constitution, one of the good bourgeois constitutions, maybe one of the best, of that kind of constitution all over the world. So constitutional framework, the legal framework that comes out of that, the way state is constituted under the, under that framework. So we all know the parliament and executive and judiciary and all that. Various constitutional bodies and institutions. All that I will say institutional framework of democracy or bourgeois democracy. And the other part that I am separating it from is the popular democracy, popular forms of democracy. Popular form of democracy means where people express their political choices or political will to elect this or that party into power. So whatever goes, where, the people express their political choice, basically, through the electoral mechanism. Of course, both of them are connected, and it is at times difficult to separate many aspects of that, where to put it in the institutional or in the popular. But this is a practical kind of division to understand the problem, where it is coming from. So the institutional framework of democracy is more related to whatever democratic values are enshrined, into this kind of bourgeois democracy. Whatever democratic values it is possible to enshrine, So it is, that those values have evolved over a long period of time. The entire history of modernity, of capitalism, entire modern history, all over the world has participated in this struggle, in these historical developments, to come to a conclusion that certain values are non-negotiable. For example, kings used to rule, now kings, by and large, kings don't rule. There are no divine rights to rule. People will constitute their states. People will elect their governments. That is the standard political understanding that is prevalent all over the world. And this value, or this political philosophy, this political ideology, it has taken time to emerge. It has taken time to emerge, through.
Hello.
Through a few hundred years all over the world, very topsy-turvy, very complicated history. So I am not going into the detail of that history. I am just pointing out that how did these this institutional framework of democracy and the democratic values, to the extent it is possible to embody those democratic values in this kind of constitution under the concept of or framework of bourgeois democracy, how that has evolved, and that gets enshrined in what I am calling the institutional framework of democracy. The popular form of democracy also, that how it gets practiced. So it gets practiced through elections, on various, in different countries, in different times. The elections have been of different kinds, By the way, I can continue in English, and
Yes.
there is no problem with the language.
Yeah,
I can only speak English and Hindi.
No problem. No problem.
So it's there are different modes or different laws about elections. Somewhere there is a presidential system, somewhere there is the British kind of parliamentary system elections, somewhere there are proportional representation, how political parties get their share of power. In our country, for example, proportional representation is not there. It is first, as it is called, first past the goal. Whoever gets more vote than everybody else, that party wins and forms the government. So there is a whole range of ways to exercise this democracy, and to exercise the principal philosophy that people will elect governments. We on the left, we have been critical of bourgeois democracy. We have often said that the institutional form of democracy is not fully honest, is not fully democratic, is a way of exercising class rule of bourgeoisie, of class rule of capitalist class. That is, our more or less across the spectrum, that has been the position. And in that, if the institutional framework democracy itself gets challenged, then you can criticize the other part of democracy, the popular form of democracy also, without putting any responsibility or any blame on the people or on the voter. So the basic problem in our criticism has been that the framework itself and the philosophy behind it, the framework itself is unacceptable to us, is problematic, Hence all the other problems follow. So when you talk about popular democracy not really being genuinely popular, not expressing the will of the people, all the criticisms that we make, that flows from our critique of the institutional framework of democracy. That roughly is our understanding. And what I am going to argue is that we have to rethink that. Not in the sense that I have no illusion that this is bourgeois democracy. This is a democracy that works under this is a form of class rule. I will still hold that. Despite what I'm going to say just in a few minutes, I will still hold that this is class rule. And this democracy is a form of class rule. I stand by that position. And yet, the critique that I have, we are talking right now in this portion about the current political crisis or current political situation, and in that if we forget about our long-term goal as a leftist, our long-term goal of socialism or a new system or whatever you call it, socialism or new democracy, depending on what part of left one comes from, but a new system, where working class is in the leading position of that state. Working people are in the leading position of that state. So that is the distant goal. That defines us as leftists. But we are sitting in a bourgeois democracy. Under that bourgeois democracy, a crisis has appeared. A very serious problem has appeared. whether we realized it or not 10 or 15 years ago or 20 years ago. But now that there should be no confusion about it, that a crisis situation has appeared with the rise of Hindutva, with the rise of this kind of fascism, whatever you call it. I'm not going to getting into the technical definitions, fascist, proto-fascist, some kind of fascist, semi-fascist, Hindutva fascist, whichever name you take it. This is the crisis I am talking about. So if for a minute I will park our identity as left and our previous critique of bourgeois democracy, I will park it. I will come back to that in the last, in the last third of the point I am making. Right now, let us look at the present crisis as anybody, left or non-left, is looking at it. Whoever considers it as a crisis, and that will be entire left. That will be large part of bourgeois political forces spectrum, liberals, many kinds of bourgeois progressives, and enlightened bourgeoisie, of some kind or the other. Most of the people who will be excluded from that part of Hindutva part of the spectrum. Most of the people who will stand opposed to that, stand opposed very strongly, less strongly, very in a principled manner, not so in a principled manner, but for whatever reasons they stand opposed to that. All that I am seeing as one spectrum, and I am defining this political situation as a crisis from the perspective of that part of a spectrum. So left is included in what I am going to say. Large part of left will not agree to what I am going to say, and yet, it is, conceptually, as far as I can see, left is included because it is opposed to Hindutva, it is opposed to fascism. That is its job. So it's very much, the way I'll put it is that I'll propose that left should look at it in this manner. In which manner? If we are forced to talk about this kind of democracy, then our critique is more of, as I said in the beginning, more of institutional part of democracy, institutional framework itself. Whereas what we see actually happening is that popular democracy has come to a stage in India where it is attacking or undoing or doing damage to institutional framework of bourgeois democracy. So popular democracy is being used to undo democracy, or undo, if you want to be accurate, we come from left background, we know if you want to be accurate, then popular democracy is undoing the institutional framework of bourgeois democracy. This is not the first time it is happening. It has happened many times in the history of capitalism, in the modern history, and we know the very famous examples of Hitler and so on, who came to power or nearly came to power through elections. Hitler nearly won, and then he was not fully in majority in the beginning, but then later on when he managed to get power, then whole Germany was behind Hitler. 90% of Germany was supporting Hitler. People were supporting Hitler. You cannot say that people were just fooled by Hitler's rousing speeches or whatever. Many people have argued that Germans were kind of ready for Hitler. So there are examples in history where popular part of democracy itself has gone. There have been stages where popular form of democracy itself has gone against institutional form of democracy. And this is difficult, for us as leftists, this is difficult to say and difficult to accept, because our general understanding is that institutional framework is the blueprint of class rule, which we are opposed to, and people are our people who are vote, they don't have an option. Revolution hasn't happened, no other framework has come. So what could they do? They will vote in this framework. So people are okay, We don't have complaint against people. How could you have complaint against people anywhere? Where do you go by complaining against people? Like in religion, you can't go anywhere, by complaining against God. In politics, you can't go anywhere complaining against people. So that is why our standard understanding is that, what could we do with people? All the problem is with the bourgeois democracy itself, with the institutional framework of democracy itself. But then we have to ask the question that then why are we complaining? Why are we saying that this is a crisis? Why are we saying that the task should be to defeat this monstrous force that rules India today? We can't say that people have no role to play in the elections. Then you go on a different track. Then you say that, these elections are farce. No political will is expressed. Nothing happens in these elections. You should completely ignore it. But that's, that's not feasible. After all, in 75 years of this kind of democracy, you will see some large-scale upsurge if people are not expressing their political opinion at all. So somehow people are expressing their political opinion. They become soon, once they elect a government, soon they may get unhappy with that government. And there may be very good reasons for people to become unhappy with the government they have elected. But you can't say that they are not expressing their political will. They are not making their political choice. They are making that. So then you cannot avoid this question, that how come this situation has emerged in India? How come people themselves have, through continuous participation in the political process through elections, somehow the whole political ship has moved in such a way that it is in these troubled waters now? That's, I think, we will have to understand. If we don't confront this question, that what is wrong with popular form of democracy, and if we put all the blame on institutional form of democracy, by calling it bourgeois democracy and criticizing because it is capitalist, it is class rule, then we are not able to confront certain very glaring questions that is looking into our eyes. So let me come briefly to that. That will be the second part of the first part, which is how has this problem with popular form of democracy as opposed to institutional framework of democracy. I will not go into that. I will come back to it in the end when I talk about left. What is wrong with the popular form of democracy? What happens with the popular form of democracy? It has been now, so from the first elections, 1952, it has been 70 years of elections. The first election, in 1952, communists were the principal opposition. Of course, Congress was the ruling party, and that is very understandable. Congress was coming on the prestige of Gandhi and Nehru and, main leaders of the anti-colonial struggle. We on the left could not lead the anti-colonial struggle. That's a separate story, whether we could have led or not, For whatever reasons, Congress party largely led the anti-colonial struggle, and that prestige, it made Congress party as the natural choice of people, You could say it through leaders or through the entire prestige of national movement, anti-colonial movement. Congress party came to power, and there was hardly, any challenge to it. The only challenge that came from left, left because, left always was, while participating in the anti-colonial struggle, it was at the same time critical of the Congress party and other bourgeois forces, other bourgeois anti-colonial forces. And that, the Navy rebellion, then Telangana struggle, Communist Party being very active in large parts of the country, making trade unions, Kisan Sabhas, participating in people's struggles, despite all the critique that we are subjected to, even on the caste question, we were, we may not have understood it theoretically correctly, but practically, we were the pioneers of even raising the caste question. Wherever we made Kisan movements and trade union movement, this all the criticism of not understanding the caste, the basic part of Indian society, being in caste, in practice, Communist Party understood that. So Communist Party, not all over the country uniformly, but in large part of country, was on ground, was fighting on the wrong issues and right issues, and because of that there was some support. So anybody who could manage to challenge Congress to some extent, it was left. You see who else was there, Swatantra Party and the Lohiite, others, Indian socialists, and so on. They all gradually gained ground as Congress hegemony began to decline. Somewhat before that, but it's political processes take long time. So by and large, you can say that when Congress hegemony was there, when Congress was unchallengeable, at that time only leftists could challenge Congress, and that is why left was the principal opposition in 1952. You know the political history, I will not go into the detail of that. In 1967, for example, after Nehru's death and after Shastri's death, after Indira becoming the Prime Minister, in 1967, for the first time, Congress gets challenged in state assemblies. So in 1967, many state governments, many non-Congress state governments are formed. So you can notice that period that, now something is happening. I will still not call that Congress hegemony has disappeared. Still Congress hegemony is there. Between 67 and let us pick another date, 1992, Babri Masjid. So from 67 to 92, in these, 25 years or so, this quarter of a century is the decline of hegemony of Congress, the process in which Congress hegemony declines. When Congress hegemony is intact, or when it is when it is intact, then for various reasons, communal forces are at, they are at bay. Gandhi's assassination, RSS going underground, a state coming heavily on them for a while at least, they had to go on a back foot. The communal forces had to go on the back foot, because of the mistake or whatever their strategy was. It backfired, of assassinating Gandhi. They paid a price for that. So that was the Nehru period, more or less, was when there was least distance between the institutional framework of democracy and popular frame of democracy. And when both were a good approximation of each other, when both were close to each other, institutional framework and the popular practice of democracy, that was the period when Congress hegemony was unchallengeable. When Congress hegemony or any hegemony is unchallengeable, then elections are not that competitive. Elections are not that real in the sense that people automatically vote for the, whoever, occupies their political mind, whatever political hegemony is there, So it's, you see the irony that institutional framework of democracy and popular form of democracy are close to each other when democracy is not that real. Okay? When people automatically vote for Congress. In the period, in the next 25 years, when the Congress hegemony is on the decline, you see a very turbulent period. Indira is Durga, because she broke Pakistan in two parts, that is 1971. But by 1974, there is a whole popular movement against her, and the Durga becomes very unpopular. The supreme leader, of the country and of course of Congress becomes very unpopular, And in imposes emergencies, loses elections. We should also notice that nobody forced her to declare elections. She on her own, decided to end emergency and fight elections. I am mentioning this because we have to compare it what is happening today. These people will never do that. They are undoing democracy, and they would like to get rid of democracy. And if it is possible, in their WhatsApp university, it circulates that what is the need of elections. These kind of things occasionally rear their head, in their propaganda. That okay, now the Hindu Hridaya Samrat is the king. Now what is the what is the point of having democracy? And spending money and effort on getting through the democratic exercise. Compared to that, now you look at the person who declared emergency in a declared way, suspended the constitution, in a way. That person on her own ended it, fought elections, lost the elections. The people who had fought against her, how they collapsed, and in 1980 she came back to power. Then all the other details, whatever mistake she made or the problems she had, she was assassinated because of the Sikh problem, or the way she had herself propped up Bhindranwala. And Bhindranwala, just as, what was Al-Qaeda's leader's name?
Which one?
Bin Laden. The way Bin Laden was propped up by America and became a, thorn in the flesh for America. In a smaller way, Bhindranwala had been propped up by Congress and became a thorn in the flesh of Congress, led to her assassination. Rajiv Gandhi having the largest majority ever, in the election that followed, some 400 plus seats, and soon going out of power, in disgrace because of Bofors, because of his own comrade in arms, Vishwanath Pratap Singh, utilizing that situation to unseat him, all that history So this whole period is very turbulent, but no other hegemony has yet arisen, till 92. In that period, the vacuum created by decline of Congress, people are trying to fill it by Mandal and Mandir, which are opposed to each other. Mandal getting, because Vishwanath Pratap Singh, the kind of politics he played, Mandal came on the forefront. And he was not a real, genuine prophet of, OBC and Mandal. He had to ward off the challenge by Devilal. You guys, most of you are too young to remember, but we remember, that the day, this thing was declared, the next day, Devilal was going to have a massive rally, which was going to, become a real danger to Vishwanath Pratap Singh's prime ministership, and that is when Mandal was declared. So then that warded off the thing, and complications continued, Chandrasekhar became prime minister for few months, Devilal could not become prime minister, in that whole complex game, eventually Chandrasekhar became, and then in 1991 elections, Congress came back to power. I am recounting these things just to remind you the situation in which democracy, popular democracy, becomes really competitive. Really competitive means that when real, the forces comparable to each other are in the political arena, and trying their hard to compete with each other, win power. This is a new situation that arises in late 80s and early 90s. Before that, in one way or the other, in the early period, it is very clear Congress hegemony was there, And in the later period, Congress hegemony was coming down, but still Congress, nobody had replaced, so to speak, Congress hegemony. 90s, from 92 till today, these 30 years are of a different nature. In this period, Congress hegemony is gone, even though things are never simple. So the 30 years that I am saying that Congress hegemony is gone, 15 years out of these 30 years, there have been Congress governments. 91 to 96, and then 2004 to 2014. Despite half the period Congress ruling, this period is very different from any earlier period. Congress hegemony is gone. There is no doubt about it. And because the other hegemon hadn't yet emerged fully, hadn't filled the vacuum, because of that complexity, because of those detailed, complicated reasons, Congress managed to have power for 15 years. But there is no doubt that Congress hegemony is gone. And this is the period when Hindutva hegemony, emerges. So Hindutva hegemony emerges much, in the electoral arena, in the popular democracy. Hindutva hegemony emerges much before 2014. 2014, what gets decided is a particular kind of fascistic Hindutva being completely in power and riding over the well-established hegemony of Hindutva, of Mandir politics, of communal politics. It rides on that, mixes the development slogans, decisive leader, development, fast development and so on. It mixes all that, to ride that wave, but the wave is already created. Wave is created in the whole period from 92 onwards, okay? If you look at these decades of electoral politics, what is the one large conclusion you must come to? In my opinion, we must look at. It is that in the period when the one hegemon is being replaced by another hegemon, that is the period when electoral democracy was most competitive. Because once somebody was going off the scene or becoming equal to others, and some other forces were emerging. The period in which democracy is most competitive, popular democracy is most real, active, most vigorous, so to speak, that is the period when appeals are made to the social unconscious in a way, religious identities or caste identities, But I will concentrate on religious identity because that is what is the hegemon today. Hindutva is in the driving seat today. So, and caste identity is more complex because there are caste identities which result in very bad politics, regressive politics, but there could be caste identities which result in progressive politics too. Because when a caste is oppressed as a caste, it has to fight as a caste, against that oppression, and I have no problem with that. That's a good thing to happen. But when caste becomes a vote bank, caste becomes just an identity and stops playing the role of fighting against the oppression, caste-based oppression, then it is no longer a progressive politics. So caste scene is complex, but the Hindutva scene, the religion scene is unadulterated wrong kind of politics. That is regressive kind of politics, reactionary kind of politics, and that is what has led to this fascistic situation. So the argument I am making, to summarizing the first part, argument I am making is that when a competitive electoral democracy is vigorous, you can't stop these kind of identities, religious identities, and caste identities also you can count, but let us concentrate on religious identities, that in a society where religious identities stays, in a society where, for example, in our case, Hindu-Muslim divide has been there, sometimes dormant, sometimes on the surface, but Hindu-Muslim divide is a big fact of Indian society. I am not talking only of Indian polity. In Indian politics, Hindu-Muslim divide has sometimes been in the forefront, and at other times it has been dormant. But the Hindu-Muslim divide as a social divide, it has sat there somewhere, which the malignant forces, bad forces could appeal to. So what I am saying is that the competitive electoral democracy is also implicated in rise of Hindutva. We see it in our own examples. It is a too simple a point to make, but surprisingly the point doesn't, we on the left don't pay attention to it. We don't pay attention to it because we run away from certain very troubling social and political realities of our society. So in Germany, we can read books and say that, okay, people, supported Hitler and that a bad thing that German people did, for which, Einstein, for example, that example always comes to my mind because, I am a physicist too, so Einstein never forgave his own people, never forgave the German people for what happened during the Hitler's time. He never spoke about them. He never wrote about them. He just completely shut off, and in private conversations, he was critical about the entire people, that how could they do that? No. We can read about others in books, but what about ourselves? Where has this support for this monster come? A monster means Hindutva. Hindutva monster. Where has, can you say that, oh, people were fooled, people were misled, they are all, all these WhatsApp universities, all these social media, all these EVMs, they play tricks only. This regime has come to power only through tricks. No. Tricks have helped. I am not ruling out any of the wrongdoings, any of the tricks, all of them may have played a role, but we should not ignore the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is that there is popular support to Hindutva ideology. The popular support to Hindutva ideology was not there in Nehru's time. It was not pronounced in the period of transition between 67 and 92. But after 92, there has been, starting around that time, there has been popular support of Hindutva. And to whatever extent, I am not saying that it is a majority support, but who had majority? Even Congress did not have a majority, even in its best days. The way Indian electoral system is that if you get 30 to 40% of votes, depending on how the opposition is, you are in power. Same is the case with these people. They may probably they have 40% vote, roughly around that ballpark, in the elections, in the national elections. But they are dominant, and 40% support is not small. The kind of thing that 40% people do not come to vote. Only 60% of people vote. And politics is always, Indian society that way has not been that strongly politically organized and motivated. So 40% is a very large number. And they have all the other things, they have the largest army, under the largest cadre force, all the corporates behind them, all the money, everything. Now the hegemony is well established. But underneath this well established hegemony, underneath all the political strategies that RSS and BJP have successfully practiced, we should not forget that there is something in our society that has helped them. So the political playing field is not even. Political playing field is tilted against us, tilted against the left, tilted against liberals, tilted against genuine bourgeois Democrats, liberal bourgeois Democrats. Even they are finding it difficult. And it is in this context that you have to realize what is happening today. You see, there was complete darkness that was there, and who rose to whatever challenge is possible today. Not left. Left is fragmented. Left has been on the decline. As I said, in left I count from CPI all the way to radical left. So West Bengal was lost. Only Kerala is there. Other left, which does not participate in election, is too fragmented, doesn't have any strength or wisdom to influence the politics of the day. Mostly busy fighting among themselves, criticizing, one faction criticizes the other faction that they are betraying the principles, of our ideology. So we are mostly very harsh on each other, on ourselves. We are not able to play a role. Who comes to the fore? The same Congress which we were talking earlier has all kinds of problems. Congress has never been an ideological party. It has never been a party, so to speak. It has been an umbrella. It has had all kinds of leaders and political forces. Many of them could walk over to BJP, without batting an eyelid. They are as adjusted here as they are adjusted there. Many such leaders are there. Congress has been full of that. So it is a difficult challenge for anybody in Congress to confront this kind of hegemony, Hindutva hegemony, because it was difficult for anybody who genuinely wanted to challenge the Hindutva hegemony. The first hurdle came from Congress itself. Many people, many different kinds of forces inside Congress itself. This also needs to be stated in order to recognize the colossal task that is there. That left was the natural force to confront Hindutva, is not at all in a position to confront Hindutva. Left cannot defeat, RSS and BJP. No question. And we could endlessly go on the analysis of why left has in this situation. That is a different topic for another day. But the fact is that left cannot defeat. So how do you challenge this hegemon? How do you challenge this monstrous hegemony? Congress has to play a role. Some other parties have to play a role. Most of the other parties, other than the Hindutva parties, are splinters of Congress. Most of them, this is the main divide, ideological divide, that happens in the Indian society. On the one side, you have the liberal constitutional bourgeois Democrats. On the other side, you have semi-fascistic Hindutva forces. This is the main divide. The kind of class divide and politics based on class divide that we imagined, left imagined, that has not come to fruition. That has not become reality. So today's politics is being driven by, on the one side, constitutional, liberal, relatively enlightened bourgeois Democrats, and on the other side, these fascistic forces. Left cannot redo, the political arena according to its wishes. That is the grim reality. In this grim reality, then you have to choose your side. So that is where I will stop the first part. That this is the description of where political crisis is. If this is not recognized in this way, and if we keep on talking about, there is no solution, there is no alternative to revolution, we can save India only by making our kind of revolution, this is empty talk, or talk of confused people. That is not on the agenda right now. Even defeating this kind of fascist force is difficult enough, and left is in such decline, such fragmentation, and when faced with a current political crisis, you are talking of revolution. That is irresponsibility. That is irresponsibility. That is not going to happen. This is the crisis. This is the situation. And left should not resign itself, say that, we can't do anything about it. Everybody has to do something about it. Everybody has to participate in this struggle. And this struggle is going to be fought whether you like it or not, how much you criticize the institutional framework of democracy and the electoral processes of democracy. This is going to be fought largely in the arena of that bourgeois democracy. So in that electoral democracy, I am saying all obvious common sense things, nothing great, nothing great insight that I am offering you. What I am saying you should be our common sense. And yet the surprise is that it is not the common sense in left. Is CPM, for example, the largest left party, clear-headed about what it should do? How can it be clear-headed? It has Congress as the principal enemy in Kerala, the only place where it survives. So in Kerala, it cannot go with Congress, and in Tripura, it is going with Congress. In West Bengal, probably it will go with Congress, and so that will give rise to internal tensions inside. See, I'm just giving you an example. Internal tensions inside that particular leftist party. That there will be this lobby that will try to go with Congress, and there will be this lobby for objective reasons that will say that, oh, how can we go with Congress? We will go out of existence if we go with Congress, because for many of them, existence is Kerala. So you see the complexity, this situation is given. Left is not clear-headed about it. Left is very confused about it because it is looking at the problem from its organizational location. What will make it survive as left? That is what they are putting as their first question. The other question of the political crisis that is there in the country, that comes later. And that is where the problem is. You have to make this the first question. What the political crisis in the country is, and then you have to, secondly, I am not saying that you don't pay any attention to organizational challenges, then you have to look at your organizational challenges under that framework. So you have to flip it. You can't decide in the organizational interest first and then play your role in the politics, politics at large. That problem, I am giving you one example, but for various reasons, entire left is not clear-headed. Same way the social movements are not clear-headed either. I can give you one example. Yogendra Yadav till last year, or year before maybe, maybe last year, was saying that Congress should die for democracy to survive. Because other political forces will not arise. And I am very glad that he has come to senses. And he is playing a leading role from the social movement side, from the civil organization side. He did play a role in Bharat Jodo Yatra. That is very good. Ramchandra Guha, the historian, still hasn't come to senses, but at least Yogendra Yadav came to senses. This example is a graphic example. It makes our point that even social movements, if Bharat Jodo Yatra had not succeeded, what the social movements will be doing today? They will be back to their horses. Their horse is anti-Congress horse. All kinds of, the way the left also rides mostly anti-Congress horse, same way social movements also ride anti-Congress horse. And that is a big problem. They have been forced to walk behind Rahul Gandhi. The social movements have been forced to walk behind. They have their own reasons to walk behind Rahul Gandhi, which I am happy about. But the way left has to introspect that why are we in this situation, the same way social movements also have to introspect. There are equally large challenges before social movements too. Why is it fragmented? How come someone who was among the founding members of Dalit Panther in Maharashtra is part of Modi government? How come Mayawati has played the role in UP the way she has played? She has completely yielded, she is part of, the Trojan horses of BJP. Just the way Kejriwal is a Trojan horse of BJP, just the way Owaisi is a Trojan horse of BJP, same way Mayawati is also a Trojan horse of BJP. You know, how come this situation arose out of Dalit movement? So it is not that we leftists only have to answer questions. Social movements also have to answer questions. All the Lohiites have to answer questions. You know. And that is forcing people, without changing their framework, ideology, political strategy, it is forcing, just the success of Rahul Gandhi is forcing them to walk behind. Our argument is that there has to be a principled support, not this compulsions kind of support. You know, that we are caught in a rock and a hard place. On the one side is BJP and Hindutva fascists, on the other side is Congress, which we have fought all our lives against. And now we are being forced to go on the one side. That is not the way to do politics. Concrete politics must be done with clear-headedness and with clear ideological argument. And the clear ideological argument is that fascism is the enemy, Hindutva is the enemy. It is very deep-seated in our social mind. It is not something that people have played tricks and only because RSS has worked very hard for 70 years. All that is true. All that has played a role. But something sits there in our social mind, you know, that makes their task easier. That makes the task of Hindutva easier. So what is the solution? The second part. This is a difficult, you know, way to put the problem, because most people don't put the problem in this way, because then it becomes almost unsolvable. That if the problem, large part of the problem remains in the popular mind, in the social mind, then how do you solve it? You know, yes, it is a very difficult problem, because I always give this story, you know, from Mahabharata. You know, our friends here, you know, will be bored of this story because I repeat it. You know, our society, our civilization is such that the question of what is right and what is wrong has always been clouded. You know, take the example of Mahabharata. When the war is about to start, both parties, their leaders reach, you know, Krishna's place. You know, Lord Krishna is sleeping, and on the head side, you know, Duryodhan sits, and on the leg side, you know, Yudhishthir or Arjun, whoever went, you know, Arjun sits, you know, and he gets up and gives one side his entire army and gives the other side, you know, himself, you know. So what was right and what was wrong? If one party was wrong, then why give the army to that party? So not only he gave army to one party, from the other side, he did all kinds of tricks and all kinds of strategies to get his own army killed. And then we define, we explain that as that, oh, his army has gone corrupt and all these Yadava armies was in problem anyway. He wanted to decimate them also. So he was the god, or he was the great strategist. So he, you know, in one shot he solved two problems. You know. That is how our dharma granthas, shastras are there. It is difficult to take a clean side. But I give this story that if today both us, or let us say secular forces, you know, and the communal forces go to Janta Janardhan, you know, Janta Janardhan is Krishna, go to Janta Janardhan and ask for support, who will the Janta Janardhan more likely to support? You know, at least he gave, you know, he supported both the sides. Right now the situation is that both the sides are not being supported. Okay? That is how the reality is. But then there is a solution to that also. The problem is more with our own lack of clarity in understanding. The solution is this constitution, the institutional part of democracy that I started with. The solution is is modernity. By modernity, I mean, again, this is a controversial word, and mostly people on left and on social movement don't like this word, But we redefine modernity in a very nutshell, clean way. Modernity is basically, it walks on two legs: rationality and individual freedom. Freedom of the individual. That's the ultimate goal. I mean, we are Marxists, and almost all the time Marxists are confused about this word individual, that they think that if you talk of individual, it becomes individualism. But that's not true. Marx himself wrote that, ultimately the goal is freedom of the individual in the long run. Finally, when the class withers away, class goes away, then finally it is the freedom of the individual. This is what modernity is. Rationality means come away from the influence of religion, influence of God. That doesn't mean that you force everybody to become atheist, but at least we are talking of the political arena. The political arena, as far as possible, should be outside the influence of religion. And this itself is a very big problem in our country, because in our country secularism has been defined as sarva dharma samabhav, which means equal respect to all religions. And this opens the door for a state to get implicated into the religious dynamics. This separation of a state from religion is taken as a Western concept. It may have originated in West, but it's not a Western concept. Just as modern science did originate in West, but is modern science a Western science? Are we going to, when we become finally free from whatever enslaves us, we are going to have our Indian science, and Chinese are going to have their Chinese science? No. We know that cultures are specific. Every culture prescribes to its people a way of living, and there are dozens or hundreds of cultures on the planet. So we recognize cultural specificity, but that doesn't mean that there is nothing universal about humanity. There are these cultural particularities, but there are some universalities also. For example, we live in the same universe. All cultures live on the same planet, in the same universe. We are all subjected to same law of gravitation. We fly the planes through same, fluid dynamics or aerodynamics, hydrodynamics. So, there are universal parts. That universal part, which is not culture specific, that is what we call modernity. It just so happened that it started in Europe, but everything has to start somewhere at some point in time. Wherever it starts, it does not become only theirs. So the concept of rationality is not a Western concept. The concept about individual freedom is not a Western concept. The concept about secularism being defined as a separation between state and religion, it happened in a specific way because there was Christianity there, and there was a split of Christianity between Catholics and Protestants, and big religious wars were fought, and they were in turmoil. The Europeans were in turmoil for 300 years, and during those 300 years, after killing many Europeans, Europeans killing Europeans, many wars, they, in a very painful way, they came to this realization that religion should be kept out of politics as far as possible. And even after that realization, they have not been able to do that. Those Western democracies which work under this concept of secularism, of a state and religion separation, religion plays a role in all their elections, in all their social struggles. Trump comes up, because of racism, but there are right-wing Christians coming up and supporting Trump, and so on. Same thing happens in Europe all over. Same thing happens in Britain too. None of them.
Martin Luther King
too. Yeah. So that's from the positive side. But he also came with, with religion, even though, as in a way that's a very good point. In a way, if you compare Martin Luther King with Ambedkar was much more clear-headed, because he challenged Hindutva per se, but then he could not find a way, and in the end he also went into the sharan of another religion, Buddhism. But Martin Luther King was avowedly Christian and using Christianity to fight against racism, for civil rights, So though religion has not gone away from politics anywhere, but why are those societies like that and we are like us? Why do we shut our eyes to the historical happenings of recent times? Partition was not that far away, only 75 years ago. And for whatever reasons partition happened, I am not going today because that's a long story, but 1 to 2 million people were killed in the partition, 10 से 20 लाख के बीच में. It's a huge number, one of the largest, and I'm talking of people killing people. I'm not talking of armies killing people, state killing people. I'm talking of people killing people. This is one of the largest such tragedies that happened. More concentrated but a smaller in number is probably Rwanda, where Hutu Tutsi, massacre took place. So smaller things, much more concentrated, has happened in many other societies. But if you put a map on the wall and try to see where such large scale people to people massacres have happened or they are possible, that danger is there. Despite all problems, it is not there in the developed capitalist countries. In the developed, quote unquote developed democracy. In Europe, people are not going to kill people in millions. In America, people are not going to kill people in millions. But we walk a very thin line. We can land up in a situation where again India is 140 billion, 1.4 billion, 140 crore, We can kill in millions. लाखों लोगों को हम आपस में लड़ के मार सकते हैं. That kind of danger threatens us. So why it is that on the planet, in the world, certain societies are faced with this threat, and some other societies are not faced with that threat? We leftists have to answer that question too. And that is because we have not paid accurate, insightful attention to the question of modernity. Modernity is inescapable. Without modernity, we will fight as tribes. Without modernity, we have fought as tribes. And this talk of that, these BJP fellows came about and they sowed the poison in the people's mind. Otherwise, we have always lived peacefully, have never fought with each other. What kind of fairy tale we are talking about? We have always fought with ourselves. There has been a long history of sectarian conflict and violence in India. Why did Buddhists disappear from the Indian scene? What happened to them? What happened to Charvakas? What happened to even Jains, because they were incorporated into Hinduism basically. And Buddhists were pushed out. Charvakas were eliminated. Lokayatas, all the materialists were eliminated. What happened between, let us say, 2-3, around Christ's time all the way up to arrival of Islam in India, that whole millennium, the first millennium after Christ, what were we doing? The Gupta period, that was a big empire, and the big empires always got established through lot of wars and lot of violence. But let us say that was the classical period. That was the period of great empire, and with Kalidasa and Aryabhatta and all the intellectual peak that we had. There was no doubt. Gupta period classical period was intellectual peak, Kalidas, and Aryabhatta, canonical, super names, But what happened after that? The whole society is fragmented, the whole society is corrupt, the whole society is infested with these tantrics. Even Buddhists becomes like tantrics after 5th or 6th or 7th century, after, they lose royal patronage. Even Buddhists, when they try to hide among people, because they are being attacked from the other side, they become more and more, in order to allure people, in order to mesmerize people, they do the same thing that other tantrics are, Hindu side of tantrics are doing. And that is a very disturbing part of our history, And we were ready to be defeated by whoever came from the passes, Khyber and Bolan passes. A few thousand.
And not to forget Vaishnava Shaivite sects.
Here in South, yes. That those sects and the fights between Vaishnavas and Shaivites, that was as ferocious, as violent. So we were ready as a society that some few thousand horses and few thousand warriors, come from the other side, from the Afghanistan side, from Central Asia or wherever, come here and go all the way to Somnath, and the Somnath king, the patron of Somnath temple, runs away, doesn't even fight, and now we are talking about all the Hindu glory. So why did we get defeated? Why was our glory so easily despoiled by few thousand horsemen coming from outside? We never ask that question. We talk about these fairy tales about we have never fought among ourselves and we have been the Vishwaguru and we have been the peaceful ones, So that question, how does that history is playing into today's politics, we cannot run away from that. We cannot put blame only on the BJP. If BJP is not there, somebody else will be there. Somebody else will come and, dig this up from the social unconscious, And what is the solution? The solution is to the extent modernity has come. No matter how troubling is its origin. Modernity may have originated in Europe. Modernity may have helped capitalism. I always separate between the two. Modernity is not same as capitalism. Capitalism is a system, is an economic and political system. Modernity is a social framework, social ideology. Okay? It just so happened that they were born together. It just so happened that capitalism was fighting against feudalism in Europe and it adopted modernity in its fight. So modernity was roped into the capitalist project. That doesn't mean that modernity is same as capitalism. That does not mean that modernity must be rejected by those people where modernity came through colonialism. What was colonialism? Absolutely wrong. They came to loot us. They came to rule over us. They plundered us. Their capitalism was fed on our resources and our money. So all bad things you can talk about colonialism is true. That happened. And yet, why did they come as victors and why were again? It has happened to us over and over again. Few thousand British and French coming on few dozen ships, and they British conquer whole of India. A company, East India Company conquers whole of India. Where was our glory? Where was our all knowledge and all our bravery? So we have to look very closely at this thing of modernity, even though it came with colonialism. Just as modernity was born with capitalism, it does not become capitalist. Same way modernity comes to our shore with colonialism, and that does not become colonial. Modernity is not colonial. Modernity is not capitalist. So when colonialism comes, and right from 1900, and in later part of 19th century, already they are talking about some kind of elections, some limited self-rule. Already after all, if they were not talking of in 1909, there was no question of national struggle. There was no question of Second World War weakening the British so that we could become independent. 1909, they were at their peak. And in 1909, already the communal award is given. The communal award. That Muslims will elect their representatives. No. So why was that issue at all? If it was only a colonial rule, because there was already a talk of people participating in some ways, in some limited way, participating in election. electing their representatives. Who brought it? British brought it. No matter how much we say that India is the oldest democracy, Lichavis and, I come from Bihar, Bihar is known for, democracies, and Ganatantras, republics, no matter what we say, we are, democracy is a very recent phenomenon here. And in a very limited way, it came with colonialism. More importantly, colonialism gave rise to national movement. National movement argued from the same modernist perspective that you have no right to rule over us because you will not allow somebody else to rule over Britain. No, same logic should be applied to us. If you don't allow others to rule over Britain, how can you rule over us? It was a modern logic. It was a logic of people being sovereign and people constituting their own state. So the colonial side of modernity gave rise to nationalist side of modernity. So colonialism was instrumental in bringing modernity to our society, and it finally bore fruit as independence movement, independence of India, this constitution being written. This is what I count as defining features of political modernity. To the extent this political modernity has taken roots in India, that is the solution. There is no other solution. Whatever they did in the national movement, whether we agree with Gandhi or not, whether we agree with Nehru or not, but whatever they did resulted in independence, resulted in this constitution, even if we call it bourgeois constitution. And there also, just 2 minutes on that. I had to ask myself that I have always opposed this constitution. How come now I am supporting it? No. I had to answer this question to myself. But if this constitution is constitution of class rule, the class rule that I want to replace, by a classless society, why do I support this constitution? And that is where I realized that in our argument, this conflation, this confusion between capitalism and modernity has been there. So, because we have called modernity capitalism, this modern constitution is only capitalist constitution for us. But if you separate these two conceptual elements, then you will find that in the same constitution there is the capitalist part which protects private property, which protects capitalism, which protects corporate sector, those parts are there. And the same constitution has this part that all citizens are equal, which these people are trying to undo now. There will be secondary citizens like Muslims and others, But, the constitution says that there is equal citizenship. Everyone is equal before the law. When we bring our socialist constitution after the revolution, whenever that happens, will we replace that? Will we not also have equal citizenship, equality before law, everybody being politically equal, legally equal? This is there in this constitution. This portion will continue in our constitution. I am talking of a hypothetical situation. Right now that is not the issue. Right now that is not the agenda. So I have a good ideological, theoretical level argument to support this constitution when this constitution is being attacked, especially the modernist part of this constitution is being attacked. If a bourgeois party like Congress party manages to redo itself so that it can protect the modernist part of the constitution, of course it will protect the capitalist part, and we will see them later. We are not giving that argument in. We will oppose them when they protect the capital. But right now, if they support the modern part of the constitution, equality of citizenship, equality of law, and so on, which will continue in our constitution too, don't we have a very good argument of supporting the liberal bourgeois progressive forces which are fighting against Hindutva? And what are they fighting against? Look at their slogans. Their slogans are either modern slogans of everybody is constitutionally equal, or their slogans are slogans of welfare state, that rich-poor gap is a problem, unemployment is a problem, price rise is a problem, poor people are suffering. You can't just say that you are giving 5 kilo of ration to them. That is not the concept of a state. A state has to take care of the society. And a state is so this is the progressive welfare state argument. Do we support it or do we oppose it? Or do we say that if somebody is making this argument, he is fooling people because he will not do that? That is not the issue right now. It is good that this argument is being made. So the modern argument of equal citizenship and welfare state argument that people are to be taken care of by a state, it is the role of a state to take care of health and education and basic livelihood of people, basic survival of people. That is nobody's responsibility but a state's responsibility. This is a good argument for us. This is a class part of argument. This is what we will use later if they win and BJP fascists are defeated. Then we will argue against them that you said this. They cannot fulfill that. A capitalist state and a capitalist system cannot take care of people. That is our final argument. So we will have our day. We will have our argument, we will have our fight. But today is not that day. Today is the day to stand on the side of modernity, even though a large part of that modernity is bourgeois modernity or capitalist modernity. But modernity itself is not capitalist. Modernity will be there with us in socialism too. So this is the argument. Now I will conclude by briefly talking about left, and that I have taken enough time, but I'm sorry about that. But we can have more discussion about, do you see this argument as natural, typical argument from the left biradari, left camp or left fraternity? Do you see this argument naturally coming? I don't see that. I don't see that. And I don't see that as an escape. So most of left will disagree. I am a leftist. I have lived all my political life, life as a leftist. I will always be that. I am convinced about the truth that is ingrained in Marxism, the correct analysis of that thing. And yet I am saying that this is what Marxism says today, even if most Marxists disagree with it. So this is the argument we have to have. We have to have, first, we have to stand in favor of modernity, which tells us to stand in favor of this constitution, even though later on we will fight against this constitution on class basis, So we recognize that this constitution is class-based, is instrument of a class rule, and yet it has good aspect which is modernity. Because of that, I am here to defend the constitution, and I will make an united front. I will make a joint effort with the bourgeois forces which are willing to defend the modernist part of the constitution and the modernist part of polity and society. It is crystal clear to me. We can have all the argument we want to need. I am convinced about it. This is the way entire left should think. Should not give up Marxism, should not throw the baby with the bathwater. Should not, become something else other than being a Marxist. Remain Marxist and yet fight in this way. This is, since I have taken a lot of time in the other two parts, I will not dwell on the left part and why left is fragmented and why left, I think, is confused and why left cannot agree with each other inside itself about what should be the strategy. And if you don't have a political strategy, you will fragment because you will quarrel among ourselves. So that kind of clarity is missing. We are too small a force. We are not big people. Whatever limited understanding we have, if we come to some clarity, even though it is not our place to preach to left, because left is very large and we are a very small part of it, but we find it our political responsibility to say this and appeal to left to think about it and tell us where are we wrong. What other strategies you can come up with against the crisis, political crisis that we are talking about today. So that is where I will stop, and I will invite you to challenge what I am saying.